We are in section 5, the partners and suppliers dimension for this practice. The syllabus for the exam is to understand the role of partners and suppliers in the practice, particularly to explain the dependencies of the practice on third parties and explain how the partners and suppliers can support this practice. We begin by discussing the dependencies on third parties. We have to first of all understand that the request for changes can come from many sources from both inside and outside of the organization, and procedures should be created and communicated to support the initiation of RFCs by suppliers and other third parties where applicable. When putting these procedures into place, it is useful to considering many questions such as what is the easiest way for the customer to submit an RFC? What does the workflow look like for service request based standard changes? How do the customers submit their change requests for products, services, or procedures? Will they be forced to use specialized software, or can they submit it via regular channels, for example, by email? Can partners also submit RFCs in an efficient manner? How are the third parties connected to continual improvement activities? And what are the feedback flows to ensure that the submitted ideas and requests are properly responded to? Therefore, the first point here is that the organization may depend on various partners to assess the proposed change before it can be authorized or rejected. Again, the procedure should be put in place to ensure this step doesn't introduce delay and other types of waste. And change authorization is often done within the organization, but where there are dependencies on third parties, they may also be involved in the change authorization, especially when significant resources or contractual modifications are required, or when dealing with complex changes with unknown impacts. An organization usually cannot take unknown risks on another organization's behalf. Then during the change planning, it is important to understand what is required in order to proceed. Consideration should be given to whether the change is actually viable and to what resources are required for the change and which systems it will impact. The next point that we see here is about the change models. The change model should define how the third parties are involved in change realization and how the organization ensures the flow of changes. This depends on the architecture and design solutions for products, services, and value streams. The optimization of the change model supporting these solutions, however, involves the change enablement practice. Often, after the correct change model has been selected, further considerations of third-party dependencies is needed during the change assessment, planning, authorization, realization, control, and review. Where the contracts with customers and vendors can impose constraints on changes, it may be useful to include standard changes and, in general, change models into the contracts together with clearly defined costs and approval procedures for any proposed changes. Then lastly, we have this where organizations aim to ensure the fast and effective flow of changes. They usually try to agree to close cooperation with their partners and suppliers, removing formal bureaucratic barriers in communication, collaboration, and decision-making. All parties in such relationships should aim for mutual transparency and visibility of the changes that may affect the other parties. And you may refer to the supplier management practice guide for more information, though that would not be part of the exam. So that was about the dependencies on third parties, but now we have the support that may be possible from third parties. So the first one is about the dependencies on the policies and procedures of third parties, and these should be assessed, meaning when designing the change enablement practice or planning for a specific change, it is not enough to look only at internal teams and processes. Depending on the technical architecture used for the organization's products and services, there may be several dependencies on the policies and procedures of third parties. For example, aspects like change schedules, potential resource conflicts, interdependencies between products like APIs, dependencies on platform software, for example, database engines, development frameworks, etc., and tooling compatibility should be assessed. Then the second point is the capability of suppliers need to be considered, such as supporting agile development or leveraging a highly automated deployment and release environment, meaning similar to the internal collaboration where one team, product, or service cannot run ahead too far, the capability of suppliers need to be considered in areas such as supporting agile development or leveraging a highly automated deployment and release environment. Historically, for many organizations, the challenge has been the opposite, meaning in that the suppliers have had more dynamic and agile practices and procedures, but the customers needed to adopt these to realize the benefits they are paying for. Within the modern technology market, An organization kicking off their digital transformation and adopting a product or service approach to co-creating value might run into problems with enterprise software providers also who cannot keep up. So the challenge can occur both ways in terms of the other party or a customer not able to keep up with the agile ways of working. Then lastly, this is about the supplier should be informed about heavy dependencies within cloud-based solutions. And this has to do with the enterprise software, which is more about the cloud-based solutions now. Previously, both minor and major updates to desktop software programs were planned and executed by the organization itself, following their own schedules. But nowadays, updates to the cloud-based solutions can be released by the supplier automatically many times per day. And this schedule is unlikely to be under the organization's control. So if heavy dependencies are built on certain aspects of the cloud-based solutions, the supplier should be informed about it. Then there are also many additional technical layers managed by the cloud service providers that are invisible for their customers, such as operating systems, networking configuration, and database engines, runtime frameworks. These are all managed, meaning configured, maintained, and updated fully by the supplier. And examples of these models include the IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS, so infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service, and so on.